The Metal Mentality podcast is brought to you in partnership with AM300 and the Phoenix Project. For more information on both, check out am300.com/metal. I felt alone, like I was trapped in a cold, dark room.
I will be the last to fall.
It seemed as if I felt a ray of light.
I won't shed a tear for them to
In
see.
a world overwhelmed by darkness, how does one move into the light?
I won't have your name to call.
And it gave me the strength to break free.
I will be the last to fall.
Hell has lost its power. Be metal and stay metal with consistency, continually choosing to make choices for a better future. Fortitude, having courage while overcoming obstacles. Grit, perseverance of effort combined with passion while working towards being better today than you were yesterday.
Once I broke free, I never intended on going back. But I had made a promise that if I ever found my way out, I would return and fight to liberate those still trapped inside. You are not alone. Rest assured, I will be the last to give up.
These are metal-minded individuals, and these are their stories. You're listening to the Metal Mentality Podcast. Now, here's your host, Preston Ewell.
All right, welcome to Metal Mentality. Today, I'm bringing you an awesome guest. I'm so excited to get to introduce you all to. This is my friend, Will Branum. Will Branum is a retired Navy SEAL who's out there still finding a way to serve the veteran community and his country. He's a high-speed individual who cares deeply about other people. And that's what this show is all about, bringing you people who have that metal mentality, that metal mind, who are willing to share their stories, willing to share their experiences with you so that as you're struggling, you can hopefully relate to something that they say and say, you know what, if this person can do it, I can do it too. Will, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. And you know what? You said something that just really resonated with me. Anytime I've listened to your podcast and listened to your guests, there's always been like one little nugget that I've taken from pretty much everyone out there. So I appreciate what you do, and I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. No, it's really, the pleasure is all mine. We connected about 6 months ago when this podcast was in its infancy, and I came across your profile on Instagram, and I sent you a link to a video, and I said, hey, this is my podcast. This is what I'm trying to do. Thought you might be interested in it. I'd love to have your support. And we've been connected ever since, and we talk quite regularly, and you still haven't invited me to come to Hawaii to stay with you. No, I'm just joking.
I'm going to tell you, you don't really want to come to Hawaii right now because with the quarantine, there are people that have been arrested for walking their dogs who live here, who are locals here, and because they left their house during the 14-day quarantine. Like the police came and arrested them. So if you were to come here, you would not be able to like go outside or anything else, which is pretty wild.
I did not know that Hawaii was the equivalent to communist China. We'll put that on hold for another day when this all ends, right?
Yeah, right?
That's nuts, man. Will, let's start with your story. You joined the military. You did 23 years. Is that right? As a Navy SEAL?
26 years.
26. Oh, I'm sorry, man. Anything over 20, it's like the same to me. But I know it's not.
Right.
But you get 20, you get to retire. But you did 26. Tell us your story. Why did you join the military? What led you to becoming a Navy SEAL? And how has that experience changed your life and formed you as a person who you are now?
So I am originally from Meridian, Mississippi. I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts as a kid. And I always knew I wanted to be part of I always had the military in my mind, like being a part of not just the military as this gigantic organization, but really much more of a smaller elite unit. I had heard of Rangers. I had heard of Navy fighter pilots. I think Top Gun was out, so that was kind of an inspirational movie. It was during the first Gulf War, or just before the first Gulf War, and then a Navy recruiter called me, and so I went down and I met with them, and they said, "Hey, we've got these programs," and somewhere along the line, I think I was at a Boy Scout camp, and a Navy pilot was out there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to be." Someone else told me about Navy SEALs, and because they weren't cool back then, no one knew what a Navy SEAL was. Army Special Forces were cool, Green Berets were cool, Army Rangers were cool. There was nothing in the Navy that was cool except being a fighter pilot, like I said, based off Top Gun. And so I was at a Boy Scout camp, and someone said something about Navy SEALs, and we had a fighter pilot come out to a campfire and talk to us. And after after the campfire was over, I walked up to him and said, "Hey, I want to be a fighter pilot, but I also want to be a Navy SEAL, whatever that is." And the guy was like, "Oh, you want to be one of those guys?" And he's like, "Yeah, when I was going through," he told me, when he was going through his officer candidate school, there was a Navy SEAL going through the same time, and he was the class leader because he was previously in the Navy. He had gone to college. Now he has his degree, and he was coming back through as an officer, going through officer candidate school. He had already been to SEAL training. He'd served in the teams. He was, in really good shape. And so this pilot told me, he's like, "Yeah, anytime the class would get in trouble, the drill instructor would like drag the class leader out at night and then have him do 8-count bodybuilders for like an hour around the barracks. And then the guy would come back in and he was barely even breaking a sweat." So, and I was like, "Oh, that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy." And, they jumped out of airplanes. They scuba dove, they blew stuff up, they shot guns. It sounded like the thing that I wanted to do. So when the Navy recruiter called me, I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to be a Navy SEAL." And still not really knowing what that was. And they showed me this really cheesy, like 1980s movie with fake explosions and, some very poor cinematography. But it was enough motivation for me to join the Navy in the delayed entry program out of between the 11th and 12th grade. And then, as soon as I graduated high school, I went to boot camp and then joined the Navy.
So you joined just because you're already a badass, and you decided you just need to take it up another level?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I would say I had aspirations of being a badass, and I still have aspirations. I'm still waiting for that day to happen.
I don't think
I'm still working on it.
If it hasn't happened yet, I don't think it's going to have to. I think you need to lower the standard for what you define as being badass.
No way.
Because I think you are a badass, man.
Always raise the standard.
Yeah, that's right. Never be satisfied. Never be comfortable.
Exactly. Always be hungry.
Always be hungry. I love it. So you got – so what year was this when you entered the Navy? Did you immediately go right into BUDS, your SEAL training, or did you serve?
No, so this was 1992. And in the Navy, it's different now, but back then the Navy has, the way they advance is through the jobs in the Navy. So I chose to be a gunner's mate, which I thought was super cool because you would, you'd just be working on guns all the time, which that is the furthest thing from the truth. A gunner's mate is the guy on a ship that works on hydraulics, pneumatics, and electronics, on the missile launchers and the big 5-inch 54 gun mounts that are on battleships, or on not battleships, but on Navy ships, on offensive
cruisers and destroyers and stuff, right?
Cruisers and destroyers and things like that. So I went to boot camp. I went to boot camp and I failed the SEAL test the first time I took it. And then I went to, but I knew where my weaknesses were, so I knew what to work on. And
so you didn't fail. Hold on, I want to stop you right there. You didn't fail. You can say you failed, but you learned. That was a lesson learning point. Say, okay, I got to do this to get to this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the mentality.
I did not pass and I failed it a couple other times.
You learned the hard way a couple other times.
Yeah, I had a lot of failures, which made me better. But so I went to gunner's mate school, and when it got towards the end, I was high enough in the class I could choose to go to another school and then go to BUD/S after that. Well, I didn't confer with anyone before I made that decision. I thought, I'll go to this secondary school for 4 more months. I'll get in pretty good shape, and then I'll go to BUD/S. Well, what happened when I chose those orders to go to that secondary school is I was obligated for 24 months of service on a ship in Yokosuka, Japan. So it didn't matter if I passed the class or not. I was going to Japan, not going to SEAL training. So I went to Japan. I served my time. I was about 9 months out. I called my detailer and said, "Hey, Mr. Detailer, I'm going to put a package in to go to BUD/S." He's like, "That's great, but you're too critical to the Navy based on this other school that you did. I will not release you." So he did not release me, and I just continued to press forward. And my mission was to be a Navy SEAL. That's the whole reason I joined the Navy. And I have this one person telling me no. So I took the entrance physical exam again. I finished everything before other people who were also applying to go to EOD school or Navy diver school. I finished swims, runs. I did more push-ups, more pull-ups, more sit-ups before everyone else. But I failed the next time I took that test. I failed the run by like 14 seconds or something like that. So I had to take it again, and eventually I passed it. So I think I passed it on the 3rd time. And I still didn't really learn what I needed to learn at the time. I didn't learn, that ability to just kind of suck it up, and it doesn't matter if it hurts. You just keep going, and it'll hurt less over time. But so I finally passed the test. I submitted my package. The SEAL detailer would not cut me orders to go to BUD/S because, again, my gunner's mate detailer said, "Nope, sorry, you're too critical." So finally, the chief of naval operations came to my ship in Yokosuka, Japan. He didn't go to any other ship, just mine. And he had CNO's call, and he said, "Does anyone have any questions?" I raised my hand. I said, "Yeah, I do. I joined the Navy to be a SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go. My detailer won't release me because I'm too critical, and I would like to have the opportunity to go. I think I deserve the opportunity to go." And he said, "You're right. You'll be in the first class after your time is up here on the ship." And so I called the SEAL detailer that night and asked if he had heard anything about my orders. And he's like, "Oh yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt you
this morning."
So was your detailer there when you asked that question? Because that would just be like,
he was
awesome.
So I was in Japan, and the detailer it's a guy that really tells, he looks at all the job requirements in the Navy for that certain job description. And he he's a flesh peddler is what I like to call him. Basically, he just puts bodies in billets, puts bodies in jobs. And so I had a certification to work on, missile launchers for Tomahawk missiles. And there were very few of us in the Navy. And so he's like, you're critical to me. You're critical to the Navy. So I will not release you until he got a call from more or less from the CNO, from the top. It was actually the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, I believe, made the phone call. But and he came up to me after the call, and he got my social, and he's like, hey, the easy part is over. I'm like, well, this has been pretty hard to get to this point. He's like, it was the easy part's done. Now it's up to you. And he's like, I tried it. It wasn't for me. So good luck. And so I thought that was pretty cool. He was a guy that went to SEAL training and quit and found what his actual path was for the Navy. Like, he's the most senior enlisted guy in the Navy, and he's taking care of sailors in a different way. So that also wasn't a lesson that I picked up right away because I was just focused on becoming a SEAL. He had a failure that he experienced early on in his career, and he turned that into massive success later on. So I called the detailer. They said, the SEAL detailer, they said, okay, you'll be in the first class, or we mailed your orders out this morning. This was before email. This was, we had faxes back then. And so they faxed me a copy of my orders. And 6 weeks later, I was leaving Japan and on my way to California.
The story of how you got to even that point, I think a lot of people would have quit. I mean, like, it's just not going to happen. And I think it says a lot about the level of resiliency and agility and mental agility you had to overcome barriers just to get to that point. Did you feel like going through all of that maybe help prepare you become a better SEAL, or how did that help shape your SEAL training?
I don't know if it's resiliency or stubbornness, or
they're kind of synonymous, aren't they?
Or it could be, yeah, potentially. Or, it was, I guess, quitting was not an option. Quitting to try to get there was not an option. There was no, this was my mission, was to join the Navy and become a SEAL for many years before I joined the Navy. Like I said in the beginning, I always knew I wanted to be part of some sort of elite unit in the military, and I wasn't specific on what that was. I didn't know what all of my options were, and really which one fit me the best, until I heard about this mythical organization called the Navy SEALs, and started. Even when I was in the Navy, I still didn't know that much. I met a SEAL we were doing a deployment in the Persian Gulf, and the SEAL that was deployed on the VBSS, the Visit Board Search and Seizure team, from another ship, came to our ship to kind of talk to us about how they do work, which was all super motivating. Here's a guy that I want to be like, and he came over and he gave us a whole big brief on being a SEAL and how they do the work that they do. So that was just more motivation for me to do it. So really it was just like, if you put an obstacle in front of me, I'm going to find a way around it. Do I go around it? Do I go through it? Do I go over it? Do I go under it? How do I get where I want to be? And this was my mission. This was my goal. This was my mission in life. This was my life mission, not just like I wake up in the morning and I, show up to work on time. This was what I wanted to do from, a very young age. So there wasn't an option to not continue to figure out how to get there.
So you
And
made,
and what was interesting is there were a lot of people who told me that you'll never make it, you can't do it. I found out later that these guys had tried. Many of these guys had tried and quit, or yeah, there were a lot of people saying you'll never make it. You don't have what it takes. You're, you know, I'm like, okay, if you say so. And I just sort of took that, and you can use it as fuel, or you can use it as
excuses,
something to, you know, water to put out your fire. And I just use it as fuel. I'm like, okay, we'll see.
So when you got to Buds and you began this, did the times you felt like quitting? 'Cause I'm sure there were times that you were like, "This sucks. I don't want to be here."
Never did I feel like quitting. No,
Wow. Okay.
no.
That
was not an option. Quitting was not an option.
So you're even a bigger badass than I thought. Like,
I suffered so many injuries. I suffered injuries pretty early on in training because I didn't train properly to get there. And when I was injured and I couldn't continue on with the class, who I'd already started making bonds with some guys in the class, and I would see them out getting, you know, surf tortured or, you know, come back from a swim and they're like, you know, nearly hyping out because the water's so cold or whatever, you know, I would go back and I would like help them change out of their wetsuit and, you know, do the things that I could to help them to be a part of that class again. It was so disheartening to not be a part of the class that I was just in, but I was injured, so I was going to move to the next class. Quitting was never an option. Absolutely not. Never crossed my mind. Now, I will say that I had many quits, many failures, like on a run, if I kind of felt sorry for myself and I fell behind, and I would end up in the goon squad. I'm like, this is really hard. And with the goon squad is basically where they give you a little extra attention to help make you either stronger or help convince you that you don't want to be there. For me, it helped make me stronger. And so eventually I was able to, you know, keep up on the runs like we were supposed to. I always made the timed events. But, you know, quitting was never an option. You know, not being there and continuing and graduating that course of instruction was never an option. Like I said, I had many injuries that nearly cost me my time being there, but me saying I don't want to be here was never one of those things that kept me from, you know, completing the training or being there.
Yeah. When I say like you're a badass, like that's pretty badass. Like they would even be like, man, that level of commitment is something that not a lot of people have. When the suck gets put on you and you don't embrace it, that's where your character is really defined. That's where
I think
it really
was just
shows.
Singularity of focus. Like, what else is there for me in the world? Like,
you found it. That's what you did.
This is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. This is all I want to do in my life right now. So,
yeah, I think whatever it is that you're committed to, if you're that committed to it, nothing's going to stop you from achieving it. Whether it's military or business or whatever it is, it takes a level of commitment to say, no matter what, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to make this happen. And I think a lot of times we get to a point where it gets difficult, more difficult than we thought it was going to, or our expectations aren't met regarding that. And then we use that as an excuse to quit. And that's kind of why one of the reasons why I want to have you on here to talk about this is that there's no quitting mentality. Like, I never quit.
I would say thank you. And I would tell you that I struggle more now with finding my goal and finding my mission, or I have a good mission now. When I got out of the military, that I I've been in the military my entire adult life. And when I transitioned from military life to civilian life, I went from having a mission every day from like before I was in the military, my mission was to become a Navy SEAL. I eventually, became a SEAL, and I created new missions within the SEAL teams of different leadership positions, different leadership goals of making sure that the guys under me were trained and ready for combat. And then we went into combat, and then that mission became even more critical, making sure that everyone was prepared, making sure that we had the equipment that we needed, from, all the way up until the day before I got out of the military. I had my BlackBerry, which I, did all of my unclassified emails on. And the day before my last day in the Navy, I handed it back. I'm like, I guess you guys probably need this more than I do now. So I was in very much denial about getting out of the military, and didn't really prepare for that next mission. I like to say that, my transition from military to civilian life is the hardest military mission I've ever been on. And I'm still on that mission, trying to figure out like my new path, my new mission, my new, I don't have the same elite brotherhood helping me along and elite performers around me that I did in the SEAL teams. Now I'm finding those people, I'm finding those elite performers, and, becoming teammates with them, but it's not, there's no one saying, okay, get up at 6 a.m. and be here by 7, and we're going to do this by 10 p.m. and then we're doing this and this. Like, you have to be completely in charge of your day, and you have to plan the day before what you're going to do today. Whether it's like having your clothes. If I'm doing something super early in the morning, I'll lay my clothes out. I've done this most of my career. Is I'll have my clothes laid out on the floor, ready to go, ready to be put on, and so I can just get up and go and not mess around or anything else.
Yeah, I get up for work at 5 o'clock every single morning because this podcast is not my full-time job. In fact, it's an expensive hobby at this point. But but yes, I do the same thing. I get my clothes out, I lay out my socks, my pants, everything I'm going to wear tomorrow, and I mainly so I don't wake up my wife in the morning, and I'll set it downstairs, and I get changed downstairs, not in my bedroom, just because I don't want to wake her up. But I've noticed in the days that I don't lay out my clothes the night before, my routine's a little bit thrown off, and my discipline throughout the day lacks a little bit if I don't prepare myself the night before.
Right.
You're talking about writing what you want to do down the night before, so that you're preparing yourself, right, for the next day.
Right.
How does that mentally help you get to the point where you're staying focused? Like, how would you describe the importance of that and how it affects you?
So when I haven't done that, when I haven't, laid my clothes out, when I haven't written down what I'm going to do tomorrow, at the very least, even just looking at my calendar and knowing, what phone calls I have in the morning, so I can start to mentally prepare for today. I get up in the morning and just kind of like what you said, I'm thrown off, and it takes me almost half the morning just to figure out what I'm doing. What am I doing today? If I don't have the discipline to do it the day before, because inherently I'm not that disciplined of a person. I need the structure in my life. I don't always like it, but if I don't keep that structure in my life, my day is it's almost wasted. And this is, really kind of from the SEAL teams also, we train very hard to do things a specific way. And the reason that we do that is because life, missions, whatever it is, doesn't go according to plan almost ever. So if you have a plan, you have contingency plans, and you have trained really hard in what you're doing, you can easily shift on the fly, but you have to have that plan in place before you can shift and get to what your end goal is, or complete the mission. You can't complete the mission without a mission. You can't finish what you're doing unless you know what is, the commander's intent, what it is, what your goals are. So if for example, in the SEAL teams, if we're driving to a target and we get hit with an IED, or we get in a gunfight, now we have to figure out if we're just going to just blow through this gunfight, or if we're going to stand and fight. And, are we going to go complete the mission, or are we going to, try to take out this little skirmish that we've encountered on the way in? Which is more important? Is the mission important, or this ad hoc ambush that we have to deal with?
Hey everyone, I just want to take a minute to tell you about an amazing nonprofit organization doing incredible things for others. As you may remember, I had the privilege of interviewing Kirstie Ennis in episode 18. She is an individual with some true grit and just some real mettle. And she wants to give that same mentality to other people who are struggling. The Kirstie Ennis Foundation's mission statement is to inspire individuals to stubbornly climb the mountain in front of them. We aim to show the world that we control our circumstances. They do not control us. This is awesome. That's what this entire show is about. It's about finding that mountain in front of you and overcoming it. Using what you're struggling with as a catalyst to become a better version of yourself. What's really cool about this foundation as well is they have 100% volunteer-based staff. Nobody gets paid, no salary. All the money that is donated to the foundation goes to the programs that they have to take people outdoors and use outdoors and mountain climbing as a process for healing and becoming better versions of themselves. So what they do is they financially support other deserving nonprofits through a grant application cycle that they do. And when they go on these climbs in these other countries, these mountain climbs, they recycle medical devices such as wheelchairs and prosthetics for the local people who live in the countries where they're doing these climbs in the mountains. Incredibly awesome. I encourage you to check out their website, www.kirstiennisfoundation.com. See if this is the right fit for you, if this is something you would like to donate and be a part of to change the lives of other people. That's the one thing in the military, across all the branches, it's you always put the mission first. And they drill that into you. Speaking for the Army, I know very little about Navy training. And I think that transfers into our civilian life as well. We can take that, placing that mission first, or whatever it is in business and stuff. And if you're placing that mission first, you're finding purpose in life and what you're doing. But I say that because getting out, that transition from the military to getting out into the civilian world was the hardest military mission you ever had. What is your mission now, and how did you find it?
So now my mission is I have started a supplements company, and my mission is to help veterans and first responders currently recover from traumatic events, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. I didn't realize that I was struggling as much as I was, even before I got out, with some mental and many physical ailments from, 26 years of being in the military. And as I went down the road of figuring out what my mission in life was, now that I had left the military, I thought it was one thing, and now I know it's something completely different. So now I've created some supplements that have helped me recover from a lot of my mental and emotional injuries, and some of my physical injuries as well. And so I'm trying to push, help get veterans and first responders access to these supplements.
So when you're talking kind of vaguely about these supplements, and I know why you're doing that, but you're talking about CBD oil products as well as some other herbal products, right? And
Yes.
those
Yeah.
have helped you. And,
So
and
yeah. So I've used CBD to help me get out of this. I was stuck in this sort of red zone of like, of just like anger and negative self-talk, and unable to have good emotional processes, I guess is not a bad way to say that. And kind of the difference between water boiling and steam is 1 degree. So I think at 211 degrees, water boils, and at 212 degrees, water turns into steam. And steam can power, a locomotive. It can, thousands, tens of thousands of pounds of steel. It can just pull down a track. That's the difference between, 1 degree. So of water boiling and water turning into steam. So I was in that kind of that degree of 212 degrees of steam most of the time. What CBD did is it let me go from like 212 degrees to 211 degrees, or maybe 210 degrees. Water's still very hot. It's still, you get those little tiny bubbles, but you can also turn it down, and that's not going to power a locomotive. Steam is. So when I was able to like turn the heat down just a degree or two, I was able to have better self-talk. I was able to think more clearly, and then I was able to, internally turn my own thermometer down. CBD just kind of helped block it from, being steam, so I could get to boiling, so I could get to less just warm water now. Mm-hmm. So, kind of a color diagram, I was like in the red zone, and then I would, CBD helped me get into like bright orange. And then I moved from bright orange to regular orange to bright yellow to regular yellow. And occasionally I touched the green, which is, always a good day. And so that helped me have this, positive self-talk. It helped. I later on realized that, some, pain injuries that I was having were less. It didn't cure anything that I have as far as like pain or my injuries, but the pain is just less. Instead of a stabbing pain, now it's just a dull ache. My migraines are less than what they used to be. Things like that. So, pain also creates some of that, spiking you up into these triggers that spike you up into the red zone. And so through CBD, I've found a significant amount of relief. But really it's a modality to help get me to where I am now. It helped me get from, negative self-talk to positive self-talk, and then combining CBD and positive self-talk, I'm able to get from like, this red zone down to yellow, green zone. I don't know. I don't ever spend a lot of time in the green zone, but that's fine. It's much better than, being angry and on edge all the time.
So it was a tool that you used with other things you had. It didn't fix anything. It just was a tool that you had learned
Correct.
about and how to use that to get to a healthier place mentally.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tool in the toolbox. I mean, there was a lot of help that I needed. This was just the first step. Like, I knew I needed the help at some point. I didn't really know how much I needed it until I started taking it. And then I realized, I have better self-talk. I'm like a little less pissed off. I sleep a little bit better. Like it was little, but it was measurable.
Well, so if someone's listening to this and they want to learn more about these products in your company, how can they contact you, and how can they find out this is a good fit for them?
So I have a website. My website is nw-recovery.com. NW is for Naked Warrior, and I can talk
Yeah, let's
about
go
what the
into that.
Naked Warrior is in a minute. Or you could just go to nakedwarriorrecovery.com, and that will also that'll get you the NW recovery. Some people don't want to write naked into their search engine, and I understand that. That's why I've made it NW-recovery.
Yeah.
But the Naked Warrior is, so as a SEAL, the Naked Warriors were our predecessors to the modern day Navy SEAL. They were underwater demolition team volunteers who became underwater demolition team members, starting in we'll just say the movie Saving Private Ryan. As the assault force was assaulting the beach, things that happened prior to the days prior to that assault force were these guys would go in, they would measure the depth of the water, they would do recons of the beach, and the way they would measure the depth of the water is they would all swim in, they would get on a line about 25 yards apart, they would take a rock on a piece of string with knots every 6 feet, measure the depth of the water while they're taking fire from the beach. People are shooting at them. Measure the depth of the water, write down what their depth is in fathoms, and then they would dive down and swim 25 yards underwater looking for obstacles, come up, mark the obstacle, and then do that for 3,000 to 5,000 yards of beach. And all they had they wore shorts, they wore swim fins, and a mask. And when they would finish that stretch of beach, they would go back to the ship. They would write down, make a chart of what the water looked like underwater, what the obstacles were on the beach. They didn't have UAVs or anything back then. And the hours before the assault force, before Saving Private Ryan is coming to the beach, they would go in, they would put demolitions on these obstacles and then blow them as, again, taking fire from the beach, having cover fire from the ships, and blow these lanes of obstacles in the water so that the Army and Marine guys could get in there. So that was the only time those guys were used in the Atlantic. But moving over to the Pacific with the great island campaign that the Japanese were doing, where they would just take over islands all across the Pacific, the Marines would come in, they would take the islands back from the occupying force. But the problem with that in the Pacific there's for most of these islands there are reefs around the islands, and what would happen is the assault force would come in, the landing craft would hit these reefs, the guys would think they were in maybe knee-deep water, they would run off the edge of the platform, run off the reef, and then drown in like 30 feet of water on the other side, and they were wearing 50 to 70 pounds of equipment. So these Naked Warriors, these underwater demolition teams were recommissioned to come back, and they would do the same thing. Before the assault force, they would go in, they would do reconnaissance of the beach, reconnaissance of the water, any reefs or any obstacles that were near the beach. They would go in, they would blow them up prior to the Marines taking the beach, and then they saved thousands of lives that way. So the Naked Warrior, these underwater demolition guys, are the predecessors of today's Navy SEAL, and that's kind of where they got started. The other part of the Naked Warrior is so we all, especially now, with so much input and so much negativity in the world and in society, and social media makes us feel bad. We have, I think right now we're at about 22 veteran suicides a day across the nation. Mm-hmm. We all have this ego, we have this armor that we wear around, and we don't take it off because we don't want to feel weak, we don't want to feel exposed, we don't want to feel like we're less than what we think we should be. But when you are constantly wearing this armor and you're never letting yourself recover, you will never find healing. You know, in the SEAL teams, when we go hit a target, we hit it hard, we do what we got to do, we come back. The first thing you do is you take your body armor off and you hang it up in your helmet and then go get cleaned up. And in real life, we don't actually do that. We don't take this emotional armor off because we feel like we have to keep it on all the time. So part of Naked Warrior Recovery is giving you the tools to help you remove that armor, expose yourself, become naked, so that you can start that recovery process that you actually need. And it could be, layers and layers of armor that you're wearing. And that's the way it was for me. I have layers and layers of armor. And it took me a long time to take it off. That first step was, I tried to do it, kind of on my own, but I wasn't capable of kind of healing myself. I used alcohol to just numb the pain, numb this, this nonsense that was in my head. I was using it to self-medicate. And so that was the other thing that CBD did for me, is it helped me to drink significantly less. Oh, I don't need it to go to sleep now. Now I can, take some CBD about an hour before I go to bed and start working on a good nighttime routine. And I can get pretty good sleep at night. I get much better recovery, and I have better clarity of thought and good self-talk to end my day and then to start my day the next day.
I really like how you're talking about the layers that we put on to protect ourselves, the vulnerable side of us, right? The true authentic version of ourselves. When we wear that a lot, I think all of us do that. And it is very difficult to take that off. I think a lot of reason why we do that is we fear what other people will think if they see us for who we really are. And then there's more to it than that, but that's just from my own personal experience. And I like talking about that, how using these products in your line for your business to help you remove those layers that you've put up for years.
Right. I mean, we care too much about what other people think about us.
So true. So true. I mean, it shouldn't matter at all, but it's just ingrained in us. I don't know.
Right. I mean,
research on why we do
just
that.
Be a better person today than you were yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's the way you should just start every day.
That's what this show is all about. Actually, did you steal my tagline there? Because that's my tagline.
Maybe I heard it somewhere.
No, I'm just joking, man. So if someone wants to, if you're interested in learning more about this, go to nwrecovery.com. And there's a promo code that you've given the listeners of this show. If this is something that's going to be a good fit for you, do you want to give that to them? Tell them.
Yeah, the code is METTLE, METTLE. And and I think you will get 20% off every purchase that you make.
That's awesome that you're doing that for the listeners of the show, serving other people, finding a new purpose in life, a new mission, and that you found that and you're committed to it. And I know we've talked in the past, you said you had no idea how to start a business, but you felt like this is what you need.
Yeah, no clue. Just figure it out.
Right.
And there's in business, there are so many pieces to business also. First, figure out what is your mission. Mm-hmm. And originally I had a consultant company. I still have it. I do a little bit of work on it, but people just wanted me to sell their products, and I'm like, I don't believe in your product. I can't sell something that I don't believe in. And really my discovery of CBD was, many years ago when I was listening to a podcast and the guy was talking about medical marijuana, and I'm like, they should just legalize it. I'm sure it's less damaging than what alcohol has done to me, but I'm not in the political realm. So it is what it is. But then he was like, everyone knows about THC, but no one knows about this other molecule called CBD that has all these medicinal benefits and all this other stuff. And, they use it for patients with epilepsy and stress and anxiety and things like that. And I was like, oh, that sounds like just what I need. But, I still have my top secret clearance. I'm still in the military. Probably not going to go down that road because. So now that I'm out, it still took me about a year to try it after I got out. And that started me down the road of, I found some relief from what I was suffering from. You don't get high or you don't get stoned or anything. You don't feel anything when you take CBD. A lot of it is what you don't feel anymore later on. It's like, I feel less bad. I feel less pain. And that's kind of that's what CBD is kind of doing for you. But really it's about, finding what your mission is. And I'm not a sales guy. I never have been. I've been turned off by sales people before, but this is, this product helped me tremendously. So my mission is to help as many other people as I can with this product. Because there are sensitivities with CBD. I also have one product right now that is a non-CBD product. It's a Super Greens powdered drink, which tastes pretty good, and it doesn't taste like dirt. But you can try that out as well. It's not going to give you the same relief that CBD will, but it will. Part of becoming healthy is having a healthy body. Mm-hmm. And if you just fill your body with crap and you don't get the micronutrients and the green veggies that your body needs to work, you're not going to work at your optimal performance. So we came up with this with the Super Greens formula. It tastes good. It mixes really easily. I mean, you can really mix it and drink it in the first 10 seconds of your day, and then start your day like that.
So is it like kale based? Because I hate kale.
It's got 10 different ingredients. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but they're all like superfoods. Mm-hmm. And there are some kale in there, but it doesn't taste like kale. It doesn't taste like lawn clippings or dirt or any of this. What most of the other green drinks taste like.
Right. I as you're talking about that, it reminds me of one of my favorite comedians, Jim Gaffigan. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah.
He calls himself, he has a bunch of different routines and stuff he does. And one of them, he talks about kale and how it's the superfood. He's like, if it's so super, why does it taste like crap? He's like, you have to hide it in things. Terrible. You have to hide it in things to get people to eat it. And he's like, oh yeah, we were at a party, we ate some brownies and she says, do you like those? He says, yeah, they're really good. She says, it's got kale in it. And he's like, what? And the reason why I say that is because even in salads, I'm like, I taste the kale. I'm like, oh, this stuff is terrible. But if it doesn't, and I just kind of wanted to clarify that for the people who might be interested in trying this. You're not eating your lawn clippings, and you're not eating.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like lawn clippings. It doesn't taste like a terrible green powdered drink or a fresh squeezed wheatgrass or any of those other terrible bitter. It doesn't taste like dirt or lawn clippings. And even my wife was like, when she tried it, she's like, she's the most skeptical critic I have. And
Mine
she's
too.
like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And she was like, oh, that's not bad. Okay, that's a win right there.
Yeah, right. If your wife likes
we'll mark that one off. That's a win.
Yeah, I'm gonna be trying that. I'm gonna order some of that and try it myself. I'm interested to try it. One of the things about your product, though, I just want to throw out there is they're all third-party tested, right? To make sure that they're under the
tested. So on the CBD side, that's critical because CBD comes from hemp. Hemp is a bioaccumulator, which basically means it takes all the good stuff and all the bad stuff out of the soil. So if you have, let's say you have an organic farm and the farmer down the road who has corn is spraying, pesticides, herbicides, whatever, a bunch of toxic crap on his plants, that stuff goes into the soil and it will move down to your organic farm and it'll suck those toxins up into the plants, whether it's heavy metals or whatever. Actually, hemp is such a good bioaccumulator. They're using it at Chernobyl to clean the radiation out of the soil so they can come back and repopulate that area. So it takes all the good stuff, it takes all the bad stuff, and all of our products are THC free. I think there are good medicinal benefits for THC. I've never tried it, so I can't really tell you, but based on the sensitivities and the legal world, I would prefer to, let's just focus on the CBD molecule and the benefits that it brings to so many thousands and thousands of people. But so all of our products are, third-party tested to make sure that they don't have THC, to make sure they don't have any toxins or molds or heavy metals or pesticides or anything else that, would be harmful to the human body when you're taking this molecule to be helpful to the human body. So we want to make sure that we don't have anything like that in there.
And I think it's really cool that you're doing that, making sure that you're putting a product out for, these veterans and first responders and anybody else that you're trying to help, that you're giving them something that's not falsely advertised. Because I know the CBD industry is not regulated by the FDA at all. There's no verification. So you could slap a label on there and say this is CBD and you're giving someone battery acid.
Right. My favorite is when they're like, oh, our CBD is organic. Well, what does that even mean? It's more important to be completely transparent about what is and what is not in our product than it is to be certified USDA organic.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I mean, I've looked at many companies online and people ask me, what about this company? What about that company? I'll look and they might have something, a third party test for one of their tinctures, but it's not for all of their tinctures. If they only have one COA on their website for just one product, then they don't do third-party testing on every batch that they create. They did third-party testing once just to check the box to say that they do it, but they probably don't do it I know they don't do it for every batch. And you really want to have that. If you want that peace of mind, go to companies that are completely transparent about what is and what is not in their product.
I think that's just having integrity is what I hear. And in business, sometimes some people struggle to really have integrity and talk about what they're really trying to do or what's really happening with their products and how they're made and all of that. And I think that's commendable. I think it's awesome that you're doing that. And I commend you for this new mission that you've taken on. I think that it's incredible that you still want to give back and to be of service. And the one thing I've realized with all the veterans that I've interviewed for this show and just in my personal life as I talk with them, every one of them, when they get out of the military, they still want to be of service and they struggle to find a way to do that. And it's just ingrained in the military to be of service, I think. And that's not 100% true, but majority of people are that way.
It attracts servant leaders.
Let's talk about that. What is a servant leader?
It's the opposite of a dictatorship. It's a leader who wants to make the people around them better. Their purpose in leadership is to create a great team, to make their I'll say subordinates to make their team better than they were yesterday. So they are serving their team in a leadership position. And, if you look at many of the people that I'm sure that you've served with, and I know many of the people that I've served with and worked for, their goal is to make the team better than it was when they took over. And it doesn't matter if it's the fire team, or if it's a platoon, or if it's the entire SEAL team. Almost every leader that comes into those leadership positions, they take their experience and they want to make it better than the way they found it. They want to make their people better. They want to they want to train them and make them able to basically take over their position. So they're training their replacements at the end of the day. And if you're a selfish leader, you don't care about what your team is doing, as long as they are making you look good. And I've had those leaders. I don't get along with those leaders ever.
Me neither.
But the servant leaders have always made me better, and I have given them more respect, and will pretty much do anything they ask me to do. And where the selfish leader is the opposite.
Yeah. So you're saying the military attracts a lot of those people that way. Why do you think that that's true?
I mean, it's about service. You're serving your country, you're serving your brothers and sisters in arms. That's what the military is about service. That's what first responders do. They're about service. So, again, there are the anomalies out there, but, there's this whole organization ecosystem of service that serves the nation. And oftentimes they're overlooked and underappreciated. And that's really a lot of what our mission is to, I recognize that. I was one of those people. So now I want to give back and make sure that they have, the tools that they can to recover, however they need to recover. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different injury. But the goal is to give the tools as best as possible, so that they can recover from whatever the injuries they've sustained while in service.
Well, that's incredible that you choose to live your life that way. And I think it's an undervalued character trait in society, the people who serve, and at least it doesn't get the attention that I feel like it deserves. That we focus more on celebrities, right, who entertain us. We're more concerned about the entertainers than the ones that serve us. And for some reason, we seem as a society to value their opinion more than those that are trying to help other people.
Right. And I mean, even just like looking at teachers are of service. Mm-hmm. Doctors of service, nurses of service. There's this whole world of service, people who are serving that we take for granted.
I think that's one thing that the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us, is to value those that serve us more. Even the Uber drivers, the DoorDash, having food delivered to your house. And the nurses and the people, these essential workers, as they call them, that we value them more as for what they're contributing. And I think that's one of the positive things that hopefully that'll stick. That we'll continue to value those people who what they're doing. That's about the only positive thing I can think of that's come from it as a whole. But off the top of my head, but I think that we need to recognize them when we see those things and acknowledge them, and maybe not even talk to the person, but at least in our own minds and our own hearts have appreciation for those people that are willing to serve us to ensure our quality of life is better. And you are one of those people, man. And that's why I respect you so much, and why I I value your opinion. I've come to you in times when I had questions on things, and you've been there to help me and mentor me through the issues that I've had that I was looking for help on. And I think that's pretty cool, man. I don't know what else to say about it, but I like I said,
Well, thank you.
I think you're a badass, and just doing badass stuff doesn't necessarily mean blowing stuff up and killing people. It means just being of service. And that's that. I think that's you. You are service-minded, service-oriented in everything you do. You're wanting to better other people.
Well, thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today. I just have one final question for you before we go. If you had the next 30 seconds to talk to someone who's operating at that 211, 212 degree point you talked about, that is in the red, that is struggling to find purpose, that it doesn't, life is just so hard that they feel like they want to quit. What would you say to them if you had 30 seconds to talk to them right now?
I would say, what do you like? What do you enjoy doing? What makes you happy? What makes you want to get out of bed in the morning? Figure out what that is, and then turn that into your mission. Wake up with your goal to do that thing that makes you happy. If it's gaming, if that's the thing that makes you happy, go do that. And be the best at it that you can, and find a way to use gaming to help other people. If it's, public speaking, motivational speaking, get really good at that, and make podcasts and do YouTube videos and volunteer your time and make that your mission. And so when you get stuck and you're at that 211, 212 degrees, you can look back and focus on what your actual mission is, and put all of your energy into that thing that's going to make you happy, rather than you get stuck at that 211, 212 because you don't know what you're doing with your life. You don't know, you have a bunch of negative self-talk. But if you're doing something that makes you happy and, gives you purpose, then you won't be there. You will always focus on that because it's the thing that makes you happy, and put all of your energy into that, and you will come out of that, that red zone very, very quickly, and you will stay, focus on what makes you happy. And that's how to get there and how to stay there.
That's great advice. I have nothing to add to that. Thank you for sharing that. You did go over the 30-second time limit, but that's okay.
I think I was at 29.9.
No, it was great, man. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your willingness to help other people come on the show and share your story, your experiences, and being of service, man. You're
awesome.
You're awesome.
Hey guys, be sure to follow the Metal Mentality Podcast on social media. And as always, if you find value in the show, please leave a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. But more importantly, share this podcast with someone you know who would benefit from the messages from the guests on each episode. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter @Metal Mentality.